Good time for us to do a round of introductions. I can start with myself.
I'm sorry,
My name is Tashira Cruz, and I'm a Science Communication Fellow here for the Exploration Vessel Nautilus. Now, can we move on to the science?
Yeah, let's go in the back left here.
This is Gina. I'm currently a senior at the University of Hawaii at Hilo studying marine science. And I'm an ocean science intern here on this expedition, helping to log some of the data that we're collecting and preserve some of the species that we collect and rock samples from the ROV.
I am Emil Petroncio, physical oceanographer, co-lead scientist on this expedition with Alexis Wenig of Temple University. I'm retired Navy and was a permanent military professor at the Naval Academy when I started up an internship for midshipmen aboard Nautilus. I came out in 2013, and that internship began for navigator interns in 2014, and it's still going strong. And they haven't been able to get rid of me since. Rennie, you're up.
This is Renato Kane, navigator on this watch. My background is in remote sensing and geospatial science. Went to University of Delaware for both undergrad and masters. I've been sailing also since 2013 on EV Nautilus.
My name is Trevor Shepard. My background is a scenic picture of a mountain. I did mechanical engineering at University of Victoria. And I've been on the Nautilus since 2016. And I'm in the Herc seat.
All right, Avery, you want to go for it?
Hi, I'm Avery. I got my bachelor's in software engineering from the University of Texas at Dallas. Right now I'm doing my master's in computer engineering at Colorado Tech. And I'm the ROV engineer intern.
And my name's Ed. I'm sitting in the video seat, and my background is a really cool long exposure I took of the control instruments here. And this is my 10th year at sea.
Let me see that. Oh, wow, yeah.
Awesome, thank you, everyone.
Exposure is very long. Those buttons are, oh, the matrix, yeah.
Now we would love to see who's watching us, so please feel free to write in your questions or tell us where you're watching us from.
So Emil, if you're looking at IPAC.
I am.
In order to get to the target you just dropped,
right?
Would you like to go something like just straight up this slope to this flat bit, and then eventually up this slope, or perhaps this steep one?
Well, I thought we could still hit waypoint 1.
What do you think about camera 2 there?
But then cut across.
Is that biology?
Oh, 1 second, Emil. It does,
Or did waypoint, say waypoint 1 off?
Sorry, hold on a second, Emil. I think that's biology, right?
Yeah, that's the south. Yes.
Okay, sanity check.
Yeah, sorry Emil. Go ahead.
What did you say?
Yeah, no, I don't recall putting waypoint 1 in that re-entrant there, but
we don't have. We don't. Those are the ones I. Let me check the target. Make sure it's the same one that is in the dive plan here. Wow, who keeps doing that? Why? Stop.
What?
Give me a second. Sorry.
That's all right.
Keeps switching into DMS. And
What's DMS?
degrees minute second instead of decimal degrees.
You can't be doing that.
No.
Oh, hey, we have someone watching from the Netherlands.
All right.
Charleston, South Carolina. Hello.
Hi, Charleston.
They want us to have a groovy dive.
I like the shadow on the wall over there, Ed.
Someone from the UK.
Yeah. 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 gone now, or it's medium gone. Sure is stringy though, eh?
Hello to you from Texas, California, West Virginia. Awesome. Thank you so much for watching us today. Now, we already know how Emil got involved with the EV Nautilus. Does anyone else want to share how they ended up joining us here on the ship?
I can do that shortly.
I can do that in the meantime.
Sure.
I got hired as a contractor in 2016. The ship was docked over the winter in Victoria, BC, which is my hometown. And during the winter, I was brought in to do some off-season maintenance, and that's how I got on board. I never left.
Awesome. And how many years have you been here now?
2016 was my first year, so this is
Oh,
year
okay,
4.
sorry. Cool. And in my case, this is my first time out at sea. I actually applied to be a science communication fellow at the end of last year, and was fortunate enough to be able to come join the team to explore the Pacific Ocean. Now, I didn't go over it before, but my background is in coastal marine science. I have an undergraduate degree from the University of Puerto Rico. But I have a passion for education, so I came in as a science communication fellow. So it's pretty cool that I get to nerd out and get excited about all the science happening here and share it with all of you at home.
Hey, Rennie, that new point I dropped would be before waypoint 1. We'd still go to waypoint 1.
Okay, so
yeah, kind of we'll
we'll skirt
go
along
north, yeah.
one of these contours.
Yeah.
And go up.
Yeah, it'll be less steep, I think, that way.
And then we'll go up.
Then we'll go up there, right?
Yep. Here. Okay. Just double checking.
Yep.
Waypoint 1's in the nook.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just checking. I needed to check if waypoint 1 was an errant point, but I couldn't
Looks
do that
accurate.
without.
Oh, that's okay.
Without it being in the right place.
Was
but
the
I fixed
point
it.
errant?
It was not. Am I using that word correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did great.
I had a problem several cruises ago where I was using. I meant to say the definition of truncate, but I was saying concatenate.
Those are different. Yeah.
And those are two very different
Very
things.
different.
Can you concatenate a single number? I don't think so. Can you truncate 2 numbers?
They're almost, well, they're not quite antonyms.
So I just kept saying concatenate, and someone was like, "Oh, that's a word I haven't heard before." And I was like, "Wait a minute, let's look that up because I think I'm using it in the opposite way." And it was.
Huh.
It was incorrect.
Which word was not heard before?
Concatenate. The person had not heard the word concatenate.
That's where you put 2 cats together.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it has begun.
It never stopped.
All right. 40 minutes into watch.
Ronnie Irony and Matt Satire.
My friends call me Ron. I hate when people call me Ron.
Ron?
Some of my friends do it as a joke, but it's too close to my real name that it's not funny.
Yeah,
And Ron's a very common name and like not who I am. I'm not Ron. Bren.
If they call you like Charles or something, it'd be like,
Yeah,
okay.
that'd be funny.
Yeah. It's like if someone called me Travis.
Yeah,
It's
it'd be
not-
like,
not who I am.
It's not quite.
It's not.
It's not quite.
Yeah.
Right. Travis.
I've only met like 1, maybe 2 Travises in my life, but I got called Travis all the time. It's way less common.
All right.
This one's fun, Ed. It's good.
How about
Chameleon?
Gina? How did you end up joining us here on the Nautilus?
Yeah, so I heard about this internship last summer actually, when I was at the University of Rhode Island visiting their Inner Space Center, and I really got acquainted more about, more really interested in the program, and learned that I could apply and everything, and I already also had some background. I guess my background is marine science, and my as part of one of my scholarships, I got to visit the university or the URI's Inner Space Center. So, yeah, it's kind of a little bit about how I got to know about this program. And I pretty much just put all of my background and experience into the application, and with a little luck, I got the internship. So, encourage anyone interested to apply, even if you don't have direct marine science experience or ocean exploration experience. There's definitely lots of qualities that you can put on your application, and yeah, you never know.
Definitely.
And the applications are open now.
They are.
Apply.
So there's actually a link that will take you to the application on the top of our nautiluslife.org website. So we'll take advantage that it's very early on, so you can get your statement of ready to go. So you have to write something up. You can get your letters of recommendation ready. Hopefully join us for next year's season.
So Gina, after 4 days of sailing, you finally got to process some samples. How was that?
That was incredible. Yeah, we recovered the ROV at about 8 p.m. last night, and we were in the lab for about 4 hours, about 3 hours. But time just seemed to fly by. We processed we took coral snips, and we put them in ethanol to be preserved, and we kind of categorized different samples to be sent to different locations. Some of those locations were Temple University and the MCZ repository. And yeah, we also had some rock samples that had manganese, iron encrusting formations on them, and really incredible.
Cool. Did the squared off, like that block-shaped one, did that look fairly clean of the crust, or?
That had a little bit of crust. Yeah, it was mostly, yeah, a little bit on the sides and the backs, but not as friable. Some of them were really friable, meaning that they could break apart easily. That one was pretty solid compared to some of the other ones.
Yeah, good. All right.
I forgot what happened to the samples when you're done with it, ultimately.
So all of them get sent to either URI's, URI's Mutual MSGO, basically a repository for the rock samples, and then the biological samples get sent to the Harvard's Comparative Zoology Lab, and then other organizations can request like subsamples, like little snips, or like for example, Temple University, we sent a few subsamples to them, but ultimately they get sent either dried or preserved in ethanol to be sent to those two locations.
Okay.
So also on the website, on the Nautilus Live site, is a link to a nice overview of this NA114 expedition, and describing it as a continuation of a 3-year campaign run by NOAA to begin the exploration of the Pacific remote islands Marine National Monument. One of the scientists ashore who helped, oh, there's a nice jelly. Where is that at? Brian Kennedy, who's was at NOAA for several years and involved in the expeditions, just is co-authored a paper in the Frontiers of Marine Science on a nice overview of the capstone. It was just published maybe 2 weeks ago, or a few weeks ago.
I saw that Brian had published something. I haven't had time to look at it. He posted the links.
It was very in-depth. I haven't finished reading it, but a very good overview. And Steve Oskovich, who Alexis is studying with at Temple, was also an author and produced some interesting figures of the depth distribution of a wide variety of corals. Yeah.
I think Brian's also working on his master's at the same time. Oh no, maybe his doctorate.
Yeah, I don't recall
He's in
which.
school, I think.
Yeah, he's in school, back in school.
He probably most recently had his first day of 23rd grade.
Wonder if he still gets excited to go back to school.
I would think so. He's an avid learner, as we all should be, hope to be.
I could guess everyone here is. Seems like we have some new viewers to the Nautilus Live website. They streamed in for the first time yesterday, so thank you for joining us.
Oh, great.
Please do submit your questions. I have a pretty good one over here. Someone's asking about our favorite part of the job.
That's easy for me. I'll let somebody else struggle with that, but I love the personal part of it, interacting with just such amazing shipmates and having these great experiences with our ship family.
Awesome.
And seeing things nobody's ever seen before.
Yeah.
Doing very interesting, challenging work.
Yeah, I second that. A lot of folks write in to ask what it takes to get out here, but and participate in the ocean exploration. One of them is just being a good team member, and that's true for most oceanographic work these days. You're working; it's multidisciplinary, and you're working as a member of a team, and it's a really amazing team that the Ocean Exploration Trust manages to get together for these expeditions. Scientists, engineers, educators, communicators.
I found it very cool that we get to sit down at the end of each watch and learn from each other every single day. And everyone's so open to sharing their knowledge with each other.
Jonathan Shea was a MacArthur Fellow who he interviewed a lot of Vietnam War veterans and wrote about what it takes to have a well-functioning team, mentally healthy, physically healthy, and he found that it was important for units to train together, realistic conditions, and deploy together, and then come back, not taking folks, sending them overseas like a cog in a machine, and then to replace somebody else, but because it takes time to develop that trust. But I think the process is accelerated with the Nautilus expeditions because there's very fine, a very good process to select people in the first place. So that trust is there pretty much early on. I like the map making. I think it's wild to see new seafloor being revealed in detail. The multi-beam sonar is amazing.
Definitely.
And the seamount mapping that we're going to be doing will be pretty fascinating. There's several on this expedition that, you know, that the one after our fourth dive has never been mapped. The fifth dive will be on a very large seamount that has had one track of single beam sonar over it, but no multi-beam. Dive 6 will be all new multi-beam mapping.
Now, how much of the seafloor has been mapped at this point?
Yeah, roughly 10%. Larry Mayer came up with a pretty good estimate recently. I think the multi-beam was less than 10%, but a bit more. You know, it's about 13% by modern navigation standards. There's plenty of mapping to do, and only about 5%'s been explored with, you know, putting vehicles down and looking around.
Yeah, we have higher resolution maps of our moon, basically, than our own oceans. We know more about the moon than our oceans. So.
Yeah, it's fairly quick to map with radar, do surface mapping with radar, but electromagnetic energy doesn't penetrate far in the ocean, so we use sound, and it's slow. It's a slow process. There's a pretty good book, Mapping the Deep. Robert...
Consig?
Say that again?
Is it Consig?
Sounds about right, yeah. That has a nice description of the multi-beam sonar operation. But it's basically a fan of beams beneath the ship that cover a swath, and our swath at times has been almost 10 kilometers wide under the ship while we're mapping in deeper water, as opposed to a single beam sonar fathometer that is a pulse of sound that spreads as it goes down. So when it hits the bottom, you've got a wide area covered, but you're getting like an average depth really out of that wide area that returns to the ship. So you can easily miss features mapping with single beam sonar that would be covered by multi-beam.
Now, there is an initiative to map the seafloor by 2030, correct?
That's an international effort, yep. And part of that is just getting access to data that's been collected, but it's sitting on some hard drive somewhere. So getting folks to cough up their data, get it shared, and but yeah, even then there'll be a lot of ship time or autonomous vehicle time required.
And there's dedicated government ships, and like for instance, NOAA has several hydrographic ships that are located in different areas. For instance, Alaska, and the NOAA ship Fairweather stays mainly in Alaska, and then the Rainier, NOAA ship Rainier, just kind of dedicated purely just to hydrography, just mapping the seafloor.
Yeah, so it's going to take a lot of collaboration between agencies and organizations to be able to reach that goal.
But it helps you focus your exploration efforts. It helps ocean modeling because the way that currents and tides interact with bathymetry is important for accurate ocean modeling. And it's important I think the age of seafloor mining is not too far off, and mapping and exploration is part of that. It's also important to, identify areas that need to be protected, preserved with these national monuments and other marine protected areas.
Which is one of the reasons why we're actually seeking to explore this area for those folks watching at home.
Yeah, we're going to be, we're basically informing the managers of the Marine National Monument what it is that they're protecting. So what's down there? NOAA visited conducted some dives on the north side of Baker Island, 2017. There's 2 sites. We're exploring the southwestern side here. And you can have quite a, you have little hot spots of biological diversity. And not every seamount's the same, not every island is the same. But we're learning that. You can't explore one seamount and make generalizations about the rest.
Now, when it comes to selecting our exploration targets for the season, it takes some planning ahead. In fact, a few years ahead, and we often get questions about how did we end up determining that it would be a high priority to come to the Pacific. Can you elaborate a little bit about that process, Emil?
Sure. Well, several years back, I guess it was
2014?
Yeah, there was a Eastern Pacific, exploration workshop co-hosted by NOAA and the Ocean Exploration Trust out in San Francisco. And we brought together scientists from many fields, and marine archaeologists, biologists, geologists. I brought my physical oceanography background into the mix to talk about high priority areas for exploration in the Pacific. It was several, breakout sessions, brainstorming, and we came up with these geographic areas that we put into GIS, and where there was a lot of overlap of interests, those became high priority targets for exploration. It was a very good process, very effective way to try to focus the efforts of the few exploration vessels we have. So we've got Okeanos Explorer, NOAA's ship, Okeanos Explorer, Nautilus here, and the RV Falcor, the Schmidt Ocean Institute. They also participated and have been contributing to the exploration. But it's also part of, the expedition, as I mentioned earlier, is part of just getting to know what's in the U.S. exclusive economic zone. So, yep, the Pacific Remote Islands Marine National Monument is in some areas, and Wake and Jarvis Islands, Johnson Atoll, the boundary extends out to the EEZ. Around Halland and Baker, Palmyra and Kingman Reef, it's just like about 50 miles out instead of 200. Another feature of the Nautilus Live website. Folks are interested in learning more about the backgrounds of folks out here. You can look at who's on watch and click on their photo and read up on their background. I think it's a series of interview questions that are posted there on that can reveal a bit more about how we ended up here and what we like about the job.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a little section underneath our cameras, like the quad stream. And right underneath the send question box, it says currently on duty. And those pictures are going to rotate every 4 hours and match the people that are currently on watch. So that way you'll get to match our faces to our voices as we stream live. So yeah, a question over here about what we wish to see as we explore. Does anyone have a preferred organism that they really, really want to see during this dive?
Well, I can't get enough of the Iridogorgia corals, and now the Chrysogorgia become another favorite of mine. The ones that look like baby's breath. They are really amazing structures. But yeah, I'd love to. Oh, you know, the bamboo corals. I can't diss any deep water coral. They're all beautiful. The bamboo coral can be pretty large and like a large candelabra. So yeah, I'm hoping for some nice coral communities. Everybody loves cephalopods, I think.
Yeah.
So a good octopus or two would be.
We got 3
nice
yesterday.
touch. Yeah. How about it, Gina?
Yeah, I'm really interested in seeing all types of deep water corals, especially the Iridogorgia. We saw one that was exceptionally long in length yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It was incredible. Yeah, bamboo coral, bubblegum coral. Oh man. Yeah, all of it.
I never get tired of seeing the associates close to the coral. I love seeing the sea stars wrapped around and trying to feed along the currents.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's always fun to see a little squat lobster or something as well.
Yeah, and it's also very interesting to see how these organisms interact in the depths of the ocean.
Definitely. Lots of symbiosis going on, depend on each other.
Now, I'm pretty sure that if our viewers go to the photos and video area of our website, they'll be able to find some maps of the standout biodiversity of the Pacific Remote Islands Marine National Monument. And there are some pretty stunning pictures of the corals that Emil and Gina were just talking about. Now, does anyone have our current depth?
I'll stand by.
Okay.
Yeah, Herc is at 1,065 meters.
Okay, thank you. And our
Descending at 24 meters a minute. Time to bottom, 36 minutes.
awesome, thank you. Now someone here is asking about how old is Hercules? I believe it was first launched on 2003, if I'm correct.
I'd have to check with, hey Trevor, know how old Herc is?
How old Herc is? I think it was, do you know this, Rennie?
Well, that becomes the philosophical problem of if you keep adding parts,
Right. What is
replacing
Herc?
parts to a boat,
When did it stop being something else?
when is it still the same boat if you replace all the parts over time?
Right.
But the frame of Herc is still the same, I think
frame
since
and
inception.
foam.
Frame and foam, and that was 2000 and.
I thought it was 3.
3? Yeah.
3?
Yeah.
Okay,
3 or
ours is
6.
2001?
I think it's
No, well,
for
Herc
her.
dove on Titanic.
Yeah.
Was that
Let's
as
see.
early as 01?
And then 2000 for Argus.
I don't know.
Let's see. I'll check.
I feel like I should know that, but don't.
I like the way Will Sellers answers that. He's like, he does the George Washington's axe.
Oh yeah, you
analogy.
replace the handle, then you replace
Yeah,
the...
the handle's been replaced 3 times and the head's been replaced twice, but it's the original axe.
Right. Yeah. I think that's back to, I forget which philosopher it was, but they were talking about ancient, like Greek ships. And then at what point is it not the same boat anymore? If you replace the wood and then...
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a good thought.
Alvin's the same way. It gets rebuilt every however many years.
Right, but it's got a new sphere.
But it's still called Alvin.
Still
Right.
Alvin, yeah.
So Trevor, sometimes during our missions, we get to add different sampling tools to Hercules. Do you have any favorite ones that we've tested so far?
Favorite sampling tools?
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of veer off what you asked and say my favorite Herc tool to use, which isn't actually for sampling, is the T-Boss.
T-Boss.
Oh yeah,
The
T-Boss.
toilet brush
But
of
what about the
science.
ones we tested? Like the NASA grippy thing or
T-Boss is my
Kate's?
favorite.
Still that one? Okay.
That's a toilet brush that we rigged up so we could drive with the starboard manipulator, the craft arm, to clean a sonar bell. So put that in the jaws and scrub stuff clean, and it was a lot of fun. That's been my favorite scientific equipment.
My favorite is when you lock it in and then you just wrist rotate
Spin
And it
it,
just rolls.
yeah.
and it just rolls and you can just like, it's like you're polishing the
Yeah.
sonar head.
That's much better. It doesn't work if you hold it like this, though. Then it just goes whack,
No,
whack,
then-
whack, whack, whack.
Yeah.
That's not what you want.
It'd be good if you had to fight another ROV.
Right.
ROV duels.
Sodar.
Sodar.
Sodor.
Lord of the Deep. Yeah, the JPL gripper thing was really cool.
Yeah.
That was cool.
That
yeah,
was
that looks
really cool.
really cool in air.
Yeah.
Like when it was facing you and it would start closing.
It's like a face
Oh,
hugger
man.
with nails.
Yeah, so it's like this, it's meant to be a grabber that would attach onto the side of near sheer cliffs with getting its grip from all these tiny little fish hooks that have been modified to a gripper thing that in theory could grip onto the tiniest little bumps on a cliff wall. So you put it in the jaws and you spin the jaws to open and close it, and it opens up from this close up little thing, and it opens up to this, what is it, I don't know, a meter in diameter of
Yeah.
all these, I don't know, 50 hooks. It
Yeah.
looks like it could rip your
They're
face
pretty
off.
big hooks, though.
They were big hooks. They were like large size fish hooks.
Yeah, you would catch a large fish with that.
Or 50 large fish in this case.
Yes.
Yeah, it was real scary looking.
Thank you.
So where we currently are is typically called the mid-water environment, and it can range between 200 meters to the very depth of the seafloor. And it's actually one of the largest and most unexplored environments on the Earth. And it's kind of more difficult to study than the seafloor, just because it's kind of difficult to determine like transect lengths, and there's also a lot more interest, I guess, in ocean exploration in the seafloor environment. But yeah, different ocean, like the Okeanos and the Nautilus and Falcor definitely add to that knowledge base of the midwater environment.
Yeah, and I believe there's work going on, oh gosh, at Woods Hole. to develop a vehicle specifically geared for exploring the twilight zone.
Would it be an unmanned vehicle, Emil?
Yes, and now I can't recall if it's tethered or untethered,
Okay.
but I imagine it's got the capability to hover. And I don't know if it's equipped for biological sampling. Do you know about that vehicle, Gina?
I have to do some research on that one, but
It's becoming a priority. They're trying to make it a priority to learn more about that mid-water column.
wow.
And part of the motivation is, fishing is going deeper and deeper. So we got to see what we're doing, what's the natural state down there before we're over-exploiting.
Trying to see if I can find some information on that vehicle.
Lagithoria on the view.
All right.
I'm seeing a lot of those.
Incredibly nice conditions for launching and recovering Herc past day or two. Be 3 to 5 foot seas, maybe 15 knots of the trade winds out of the east. Been really ideal. There's just some swell. It's some swell about maybe 4 foot, 4 or 5 foot. Thoughts are certainly with the folks in Florida preparing for the arrival of Dorian. I haven't checked the latest today. Last night I saw it was moving slowly. The cone of uncertainty was still pretty wide.
Yeah, so for those just joining us now, we are about an hour or so into our dive. Our remotely operated vehicles, Hercules and Argus, are currently descending the water column. We expect to reach a maximum depth of 1,966 meters. And after that, we'll be exploring and ascending along a ridge that's located southwest to Baker Island.
And we were visited by a juvenile brown-footed booby, I think that must have been born on Baker. Came out and landed on the crane that we used to launch Hercules. And even throughout the operation of putting Herc in the water, the booby stayed on the crane. Kept an eye on things.
Aw. So going back to the vehicle being developed by Woods Hole, well, does the name Mesobot sound familiar?
Mesobot? Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
Okay. Yeah, so it says here that it's developed to study swimming and drifting animals as much as 1,000 meters or 3,300 feet below the surface of the waves.
Did you see whether it was tethered or autonomous?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out. Okay, yeah, so it's going to be tethered.
Okay. Down
It
to
says here
1,000.
that it's a hybrid between an ROV and an AUV.
Oh, so it can
That's-
become untethered maybe.
That sounds like the hybrid vehicle Nereus.
Yeah, yeah. Which I think went much deeper, and that the one that imploded
Yes.
at about 11,000. They sent it down to 11,000, I think.
Yeah, I think it was right around 10 that it went. I know the
Nice.
guy who went out in the small boat and picked up the pieces of it.
Yeah, that was a tough loss.
Yeah, it was really tough.
When was this?
4
Yeah,
or 5 years ago, 4
Yeah.
years ago maybe. That was Tim Shank's expedition, poor guy.
you get attached to these vehicles. Somebody wrote an ode to Nereus.
Oh, I read that it was like in the Times or something. Not
Yeah.
really. It was somewhere, and it was really sad.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
So I think NASA will be learning from our experiences with autonomous and tethered, remotely operated vehicles as they consider how to explore the Europa, the moon of Jupiter, with the frozen ocean. That perhaps could be drilled through and explored with a vehicle. I think the Clipper, the Europa Clipper mission is 2026, and that's just going to be a flyby to sense the chemicals that are coming out of plumes from that frozen ocean.
Well, they're also interested in our telepresence operations,
Yeah.
utilizing that technology for communications and
Yeah, how do you make the most effective use of that?
definitely. In that instance, there's definitely a time delay factor that you have to consider, but that's definitely a valuable tool.
I think the same would be true of exploration of Mars. Time
Okay.
delay. But it's interesting to see space and ocean exploration coming together. So I think there are some overviews of the subsea expedition on the Nautilus website from the past 2 seasons.
That's really exciting.
So we'll be following this ridge up the southwestern side of Baker. NOAA's explorations in the area found some of the highest concentrations of the corals and sponges were found on topographic highs, so ridges, summits of seamounts, and we hope we'll have some luck on this southwest side. Fairly steep in some areas. This is in fact, some of the early guano mining ships pictured Baker and Howland like trees, shaped like trees where, a shipwreck perhaps floated underneath the island. It was so steep. This one captain's idea was that it was tree or mushroom shaped. But the practical effect is there were no good anchorages. So yeah, so I was explaining early on, they put a 5,000 pound anchor, I think in 200 fathoms, about 600 meters of water. Had a mooring chained to that anchor. And then 1,000 feet of anchor chain running from that anchor to another anchor wedged in a shallower reef close to shore. And so some of those chains running from the shallower reef out to the deeper mooring are still visible. The divers have come across those. Just these chains tending down slope. And then as backbreaking work, they'd send guys ashore in small boats, and the only way to dig up the guano was pick and shovel.
And what was the guano used for?
Right, the phosphate in the guano is used for fertilizer and gunpowder, and then around the early 1900s, ammonia was synthesized in the lab. So guano mining fell off then once they were able to produce the fertilizer through chemical means. And I think there's some slight resurgence in the guano industry with organic farming now. But it's still, even with modern technology, pick and shovel. I think that may be going on off the coast of Peru. But on these islands, that business closed up about 1871. But for a while there's the Guano Mining Act, where if nobody else was there and you were actively mining, you could claim that island for your country's territory, as long as you were actively mining it. But then so after the guano mining operations stopped, there was not much interest in the islands. And then in the 30s, when aviation, trans-Pacific aviation was coming around, they looked like, Howland, they built an airstrip there for Amelia Earhart. That's where she was bound. And then World War II, it became very important. But so in the 30s, there was growing interest in asserting possession of the islands. And so to do that, some graduates of schools in Hawaii were stationed on the Howland, Baker, and Jarvis for 4-month rotations. Just I think 4 guys per island. It was kind of a tough existence because not much there, not much water to begin with. Had to collect rainwater. They had some canned provisions, but they caught fish. there were rats on the island, which have since been eradicated by the Fish and Wildlife Service to give the seabirds a better chance. The rats, of course, came from whaling ships.
So Emil, then I guess the aircraft carrier kind of reduced the need for having remote Pacific islands as bases. Is that correct?
Well, they still needed them. I mean, they used Baker during World War II, but after the war, there was no further need. But yeah, it was used to aircraft flew from there to support the assault on Tarawa. And then as they pushed further west across the Pacific, they didn't have much need for the islands. But there are still some landing craft that were sunk, you know, mechanical problems after hitting reefs. So there's several around Baker, I think up to 11 landing craft perhaps. Not sure about how many. Howland wasn't used. Even though there was a small airstrip there for Amelia Earhart's and as a backup for trans-Pacific flights, it wasn't used much, and the airstrip on Baker was more important during World War II. There's a documentary of that colonization effort in the 30s with the young Native Hawaiians called Under the Jarvis Moon. And I think you can stream that. I think I came across it in Vimeo. Oh, there's an interesting eel.
Shimmery.
Yeah, shimmery eel. The colonization effort ended after the Japanese bombed Howland, Baker, and Jarvis, and 2 of the settlers were killed on Baker, I believe. So Coast Guard came down, removed them, and that was the end of that effort.
Now, U.S. Fish and Wildlife manages Howland and Baker Island, correct?
Out to 20 miles, I believe it is, and then NOAA has from 20 out to the extent of the National Monument. So yeah, everything on land is U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. It's a refuge. There were actually refuges before the monument was established. And hopefully we can get Holly up here later to talk about it. But I think there's about a dozen species of birds on Howland and Baker. And the Fish and Wildlife Service has a nice website on the Marine National Monument with descriptions of Howland and Baker. And the birds you'll find there. Looking forward to it as we get closer.
Yeah.
I loved watching these seabirds. They're amazing flyers. Very adept at gliding at the wave tops. You get the frigate birds who can't get wet. They can't land in the ocean. They don't have the oil for their feathers, so they harass the other birds into coughing up what they've caught. Pirates of the skies.
Survival at its finest.
It's like a siphonophore in Argus view.
A brief glimpse of them, yeah. Yeah, we saw a really unusual siphonophore on the last dive.